Welcome back to The Oddcast, the show where we dive deep into the weird, the unexplained, and the mysteries that continue to haunt the edges of modern history. I'm your host, and today we're tackling one of the most famous and most controversial alien abduction cases of all time, the story of Travis Walton. Now, if you've ever heard of the film Fire in the Sky, you already have a taste of what's to come. But beyond Hollywood's dramatics lies a real man, a logging crew, and a 5-day disappearance that sparked a national media frenzy, a police investigation, and decades of debate that continues to this day. So, let's get into it. This is the story of Travis Walton. Travis Walton was just 22 years old in November 1975. He lived in the small town of Snowflake, Arizona, a quiet, rural community surrounded by thick forests and endless skies. He wasn't a fringe believer or UFO chaser. He was a logger, a working man. By all accounts, he was intelligent, reliable, and not known for making up wild stories. At the time, Travis was part of a 7-man logging crew working under a Forest Service contract. The crew was led by Mike Rogers, a longtime friend of Walton's. They'd been hired to thin out trees in the Apache Sitgreaves National Forest, a dense and isolated stretch of land in northeastern Arizona. On the evening of November 5th, the crew was finishing up a long day. The sun had already set, and they were driving home in a single pickup truck, when something unexpected caught their eye through the trees, a glow. At first, they thought it might be a fire. But as they got closer, what they saw stopped them cold. Hovering silently above a clearing was a disc-shaped object, emitting a brilliant, bluish light. It was metallic, smooth, and completely still. This wasn't a flare, a helicopter, or anything else they could recognize. It was just there, hanging in the air. Now, here's where the story takes a turn. Instead of staying in the truck like the rest of the crew, Travis got out. He walked toward the craft. Maybe he was curious. Maybe he thought it was safe. Maybe, and this is something he's admitted himself, he just wanted to impress the others. As he stepped into the clearing, a burst of light shot out from the craft. Witnesses later said it looked like a blue-green beam. It struck Travis in the chest and hurled him backwards, flinging him through the air like a rag doll. The rest of the crew panicked. Believing Travis had been killed or severely injured, they did what most of us might do in a moment of pure fear. They fled, fast. But just minutes later, guilt and concern overtook their fear. They turned the truck around and returned to the site. Travis was gone. No craft, no light, no Travis. Just the silence of the forest. The police were called and a search began immediately. Over the next several days, helicopters, search teams, dogs, everything was deployed to try and find Travis. The logging crew underwent questioning, and suspicion quickly fell on them. Had they killed Travis in an accident? Was this an elaborate cover-up? To try and get answers, authorities administered polygraph tests. Out of the 6 remaining crew members, 5 passed. 1 test came back inconclusive due to extreme anxiety, but none showed deception. Their story, as strange as it was, remained consistent. They saw a craft, Travis was struck by a light, and then he vanished. Still, without a body or physical evidence, the case was going cold. Then, 5 days later, Travis reappeared. On the night of November 10th, Walton was found near a gas station in the town of Heber, Arizona, about 30 miles from where he disappeared. He was thin, dirty, disoriented, and terrified. He called his brother from a payphone and was soon picked up by his family. What he told them next would send shockwaves through the UFO community. Travis claimed that after being struck by the beam, he lost consciousness. When he came to, he was lying on a flat surface under a light. His first thought was that he was in a hospital, but as his vision cleared, he realized the beings standing over him were not human. He described them as short, around 5 feet tall, with large, bold heads, huge eyes, pale skin, and no visible hair. He panicked and fought back, eventually pushing one of the beings away. Moments later, He said he was led into another room by a group of human-like entities, tall, blonde, expressionless, and strangely beautiful. They didn't speak, they didn't explain. They placed a mask over his face, and he blacked out again. The next thing he knew, he was lying on the side of the road watching the craft fly off into the night sky. In 1978, Travis Walton published a book about his experience, titled The Walton Experience. It was later adapted into the film Fire in the Sky in 1993, although Walton himself has criticized the film's abduction scenes for being overly sensational and not true to his account. He never claimed to be tortured or experimented on. In fact, what he describes is more clinical, even indifferent, not the stuff of horror movies. But the trauma of the experience was real. He suffered nightmares, anxiety, and intense public scrutiny for years afterwards. Now, let's talk about possibilities. What really happened to Travis Walton? The first theory is the most obvious and the most controversial, that he was, in fact, abducted by extraterrestrials. Supporters of this idea point to the credibility of the witnesses, the polygraph tests, the lack of financial incentive, and the physical and emotional state Travis was in when he returned. To them, the simplest answer is that this event occurred exactly as described, bizarre, terrifying, and real. But skeptics have their own explanations. One theory suggests that the incident was a hoax, perhaps a pre-planned stunt by Travis and the crew to gain fame or buy time on their Forest Service contract, which was reportedly behind schedule. But again, there was no big financial reward waiting. The book didn't come out until 3 years later, and it wasn't a runaway success. Another theory is psychological. Some psychologists have suggested that Travis may have experienced a dissociative fugue, a kind of amnesia brought on by stress or trauma. During the fugue state, he may have wandered into the woods or hitchhiked to Heba. When he emerged, the alien narrative could have been the result of hallucinations, dreams, or retroactive confabulation. A more fringe theory claims that he may have stumbled onto a secret military project. Perhaps he was injured or accidentally exposed to advanced technology, and the alien narrative served to cover something more terrestrial, but equally classified. And of course, there's always the chance that he fabricated the story, or parts of it, and stuck to it under pressure. But nearly 45 years later, he has never recanted, never contradicted himself, and has largely lived a quiet life away from media sensationalism. Travis Walton's case remains one of the most well-documented and enduring mysteries in UFO lore. Whether you believe his story or not, it raises important questions about memory, trauma, belief, and the limits of our understanding. If it was a hoax, it was executed with remarkable precision and endurance. If it was real, truly real, then it stands as one of the most profound encounters between humans and something not of this earth. In the end, Travis Walton's story forces us to confront the unknown. And maybe that's what makes it so compelling. Not because it gives us answers, but because it refuses to. Thanks for listening to The Oddcast. If you enjoyed this episode, consider leaving a review and sharing it with fellow seekers of the unexplained. Until next time, keep your eyes on the skies and stay curious.